At first, I want to thank you very much for developing all those wonderful theories and this research-based knowledge, which we have finally won by your so important work. For me personally, it was a very intensive relief when I first read about your work, because I'm coming from the systemic field and was one of the pioneer group in Germany who brought the systemic approach to the German language area. But after some years, I thought that is not enough, and I went to Milton Erickson and then developed this systemic approach, which integrates the knowledge of the working with the involuntary processes in the unconscious mind, and also with the systemic approach. The systemic approach in its tradition had a long tradition of more cognitive-oriented interventions, and from my understanding, that was not enough. When I then talked about polyvagal theory, a lot of systemic people also said, what do we need this? We have such a wonderful elaborated thing. What do we need? Things like that, like a polyvagal theory, because, but then in youth supervisions, people came in and always wondered why, for example, they worked with somebody who was very trembling, was in a panic attack, or had traumatic experiences, and they asked him, what can I do for you? And the people just didn't answer. And so they asked again and again, and there didn't come something. What would you have an explanation for when somebody is addressed in this way, but being in such a mood that it's not that he doesn't want, but there's something else going on?
That actually is one of the major questions of what is it to be a human? Let's really get down to that level. Yeah. And what that you're really asking the question is, when does my intentional behavior, my intentional mind lose control of my body? When does my body run the show? And I often sit back and ask people a simple question. Have you ever experienced a point in time in your life where even though your intentions were to do something, your body said, I have to do something else? And polyvagal theory explains it, because it explains this, I would say, biological motivation to survive as a foundational survival mechanism buried low in the brain, in the brainstem. And our intentional cognitive mind is quite a recent evolutionary innovation in the phylogenetic journey of vertebrates. And that phylogenetic journey, of course, was to have a larger and larger cortex, more mental activity, but it was also about this capacity to turn off threat reactions. And this is really the underlying basis of why therapy works, why relationships work, why society works, that we are not an individual organism that self-regulates. We are part of a connection with others. So our biological imperative is to connect. We can't connect unless we can turn off our basic survival reactions. And when those survival reactions are rekindled, and this is what we're describing, it's not the most fertile field for social interactions.
So in a sense, you could say, when somebody is addressing or asking somebody, when he's in an unsafe, in a threatened mood, things which address at the cognitive level, it's just as if he would send a message to another receiver, but the receiver isn't there, so to speak.
Exactly. If we discuss the priorities of our receivers, our systems, they actually, the priorities is really goes down to very primitive foundational priorities, survival. If the body is in a state of survival, the intentional aspects, that higher cognitive function, doesn't have, the word would be valence, much power. It's subservient. And so when people get angry, they always understand that, or a baby's in the state of tantrum, or a dog is barking and chasing you. We understand that. But when it comes to our therapeutic models, we haven't really incorporated it. and in our own interactions with people that we care about, we're always in this dialectic bind where people talk in the most rational way about what they should do, what they shouldn't do. But when their physiological states change, they're at the mercy of their bodily state. So they're pontificating instructions to a person without witnessing that person's physiology state. So it all works if we, in a sense, become better witnesses of other people's physiological state. And the beauty, and this is an intellectual, the word beauty in terms of an intellectual concept of understanding our evolutionary journey, is the beauty that we as a social mammal have this toolkit to downregulate threat reactions. And that is the pillar of everything in our world, our social world, our world of commerce, our world of politics, our ability to turn off our innate survival mechanisms. How do we turn them off? And that is the challenge to therapists. How do you turn off the defenses in others? How do you convince the nervous systems of the client that you are safe to be in their proximity?